I'm Brian Wilson alongside Larry O'Connor.
And how about a man who actually did run for Senate and won this last time around in 2014? He's freshman Senator James Lankford, Republican of Oklahoma. He joins us now. You will be speaking today on the east side of the Capitol building at noon for the Women Betrayed rally, and this has to do with defunding Planned Parenthood, Senator?
Good morning, too. Yes, it does. Actually, I'll be there on the east side of the Capitol, and there will be a large group of students. This is actually hosted by students all over the country, but there is a D.C. version of it as well.
Fantastic. I want to ask you, Senator, I was able to see your floor speech from about 10 days ago when the first of these horrific videos exposing Planned Parenthood's selling of baby parts for research. Your speech was fantastic because you paralleled the lack of outrage over this from the left, comparing it to the outrage that you see from protesters about animal testing. If you could sort of expand on that a little bit, I think it's important for our listeners to hear.
Well, in the same 24-hour period that it came out that Planned Parenthood was haggling over body parts to be able to sell parts of children, and they are adjusting the way that they do abortions to make sure they get the maximum number of organs to be able to sell. At the same 24-hour period that came out, the Appropriations Committee spent an hour having a long, protracted discussion about orca whales at SeaWorld and their humane treatment and horse slaughter and how aged horses are actually put down. And it was just stunning to me to see the difference where there's one area where there's this long, protracted congressional conversation to say this is an incredibly important issue, and then to just skip over and say, well, the Planned Parenthood thing, that's old news, we need to just look away. And I was just a little heartbroken by it, to say the truth, because at the end of the day, that's a child. If that's human tissue that they're selling, then that had to come from a human, meaning that was a child in the womb and it's a child outside the womb. And for years of Planned Parenthood saying it's just tissue, to now hear them say, well, we're selling livers, we're selling kidneys, we're selling lungs, we're selling muscle parts from legs, is a little jarring to all of humanity.
You know, in politics, as in parenting, you look for teachable moments. And I've been of the opinion that on the issue of abortion, a lot of people were coming around to this position largely because, expectant moms go in and they have the sonograms and they see the child, and it changes people's perception of all that. And I think that slowly but surely opinions have been changing. But this was a real moment where I think it is a teachable moment. Is that your sense as well?
It is, actually, and I think it's a lot of people that don't want to look at the abortion issue, and I understand why. It's a horrific industry. There are hundreds of thousands of abortions that happen every year in the United States. The United States is one of 7 countries in the world that still allows abortion after 5 months. I mean, we're in this elite club with Vietnam, North Korea, and China of nations that still allow abortions very late at 5 months, totally elective. So that's a very well-developed child. I mean, the moment that Planned Parenthood is collecting these different children and harvesting their organs, another mother across town is going to her OBGYN doing an ultrasound, and they're counting fingers and toes on that sonogram and saying, look at the baby. But across town, they're saying, look at the tissue. And I think there's a moment for us to stop and look at something Americans don't want to look at, and that is this really a life? If it's a human over here on the research table, it had to be a human over there as well.
And let me just ask you about the politics of the matter. If this legislation gets up on the Senate floor, do you think it can pass?
We're about to find out. Next week, the Senate will take this up. About $500 million each year is given to Planned Parenthood for things other than abortion, because obviously the Hyde Amendment is sitting there saying they can't use it for abortion. They say they do health screenings and such. The preference of the Senate, many people that I've talked to, is not to do health screenings, is actually do actual health care, to take it to community health centers.
Right.
We have community health centers all over the country that do the actual health care rather than just health screenings. We know money is fungible, and when $500 million comes into the organization, they can use it in a variety of ways. So the challenge really is let's make a decision on the direction on how we're going to spend dollars in health screenings or health care.
And just to go a step further on the politics of the matter, I mean, if you gets through the House and through the Senate, it's going to land on the president's desk. You don't expect that he would sign it, do you?
Well, you know what? Again, I'd love to be able to find out, and it's not just on a political side. That's going to be the grand challenge. I know the president spoke at a Planned Parenthood conference and said, God bless you, Planned Parenthood, is how he ended his speech, and I get all that he's a big fan of what Planned Parenthood does and who they are as an organization. I just think it's intolerable as a position to continue to say we have federal taxpayer dollars when so many Americans find it so abhorrent that we have this many abortions in the country, that we would continue to pour federal dollars into that.
And listen, I applaud you, and hopefully there are more Republicans on your side who will actually force the issue. Make the president, make Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, make any of the other Democrats in the Senate who may be up for re-election this next time around, make them defend this organization, make them defend federal tax dollars going to this organization. Because I've got to think, and listen, you're a politician, you have to run for election now and again, I've got to think that this is actually ultimately a winner, because most Americans find this behavior abhorrent. Not abortion in and of itself. I know that that's debatable, but this aspect of it, and certainly tax dollars going to it. I mean, is that what you have found when you talk to voters?
It has. I find, in fact, I found no one that's defending Planned Parenthood on this one. And I understand that some people step up and say, hey, let's slow down the process and let's think about the good that they do for screenings and such. And I completely understand that, and glad to have advocates in the community doing healthcare screenings. But at the end of the day, this is the major portion of what Planned Parenthood does, is abortions, and now we also know taking some of the children and actually selling them. And I think the jarring part for everyone to see was the haggling over the price, like it was a T-shirt at a garage sale, and they're haggling over the price, trying to see the maximum amount they can get for the child. And I think that's the part that drives it home to everyone to say, okay, this really is inhumane, what we're doing across the country.
Well, it's at noon today, east side of the Capitol building, and not only will Senator Lankford be there, Dr. Ben Carson will be there, and also Maryland's own Andy Harris, also a doctor, will be there. So looking forward to that. Can I also ask you, Senator Lankford, while I've got you, the clock is now ticking on this Iran nuclear deal, and it's in the Senate's court here, the ball is. Where do you stand on it, and have you been having conversations with your colleagues across the aisle about what can be done to stop this proposal, this proposed deal, and whether we can keep the sanctions in place to put pressure on Iran?
I absolutely have. We have multiple conversations. I've had multiple conversations with people across the aisle to be able to talk about this. This is an incredibly serious issue that needs to have a very serious look, because you're dealing with anything that is provocative towards war. And as the president continues to say over and over again, it's this or war, I just absolutely disagree with that. I've read through the classified portion of this agreement. I've read through the public portions of it. I spent an hour and a half with John Kerry and with Secretary Moniz just last week, gone through this document intensely. Right. My concern is there seems to be a tremendous number of loopholes on this, and it just takes one for Iran, as we have seen over and over again. And the pressure that's put in this agreement is actually on the United States, that if we challenge this agreement, then Iran can say, well, you broke your part of the deal, we're out, and that they're totally free to do whatever development they want to. They can continue R&D, they continue their missiles development, they continue doing centrifuges. All of those things still continue. It's more of a slowing than it is a stopping of the process.
Right. You know, Senator James Lankford, we appreciate you joining us, Republican from Oklahoma. By the way, we're both big fans of Oklahoma. I mean, my dad was an Okie, and I should point out to you that my friend Larry here is about to marry an Oklahoma girl.
It's hard to find one prettier than an Oklahoma girl. The current Miss USA right now is an Oklahoman. Yeah. And, so I would tell you that we have a lot of fantastic people in Oklahoma.
Well, next to the Texans, they're the best.
Whoa!
You know what? Oklahomans call Texas Baja, Oklahoma.
That's right. Exactly. All right. Thank you, Senator James.
Hey, Senator,
Lankford.
thanks for joining.